I don't know about you, but every time I think about the really big global challenges that we face, I say to myself, there has got to be a better way. You know, it's like our society is on some mystery train. We don't know what track it's on, we don't know where it's going exactly, and at any moment it could just stop forever at some dark crossroads called global climate change, or world food supply, or water supply, or overpopulation. To put it another way, I think that our progress on the major global challenges has been so slow that many of us really doubt whether we're going to leave behind a habitable planet or a sustainable future for our children and the generations to come after them. Einstein was, of course, a great physicist, but he also had some good insights into social science. And I think he anticipated our current situation when he said many years ago that no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And if we take this as a starting point, it seems to me that we should probably do what most businesses or governments do when things aren't going well. They bring in a new team. Unfortunately, the problems that we're facing are so large and so deep-seated that it's my belief that we need to bring in an entirely new generation. And this generation will have to be a group of science-literate, technology-literate global citizens who think big and are able to think with both sides of their brain at the same time. Now, the characteristics that these new global citizens will need are sometimes called 21st century skills, and they include things like creativity, collaboration, confidence, critical thinking, and communication skills, the ability to communicate well. Well, it's easy to put things like this on a list and talk about them, but how might we actually create a generation of kids that have these characteristics? Well, I'd like to suggest that the place to start is right at home, with parents who value learning as a critical part of everyday life and make it an adventure that everybody in the family takes part in every day. Community organizations are also very important in this link, and in particular in the years between 0 and 4 and between 11 and 14, where children are going through extraordinary amounts of change in their lives, and parents need a little extra support. Schools form the third link in this chain, and schools are now trying to incorporate 21st century skills into their curricula, and I think that's something that we need to support. It's exactly on the right track, and it doesn't matter whether it's English or math or history or science. And finally, government can be a great player here by taking a longer-term view and investing in youth development, particularly in the areas of early childhood and in the area of after-school programming. So it might seem counterintuitive, but I believe that we'll be a lot better off in the long run and we'll make more progress on these global challenges if we step back a bit and take some time to develop a new generation of kids who are involved in learning as a process, rather than in trying to teach them the same old stuff, which obviously isn't working. I mean, let's face it, we really don't have a lot of good answers right now. So why not invest in a generation of kids who are good at finding things out? They could tackle some of these age-old problems that we have, and as Einstein said, attack them with a new level of consciousness. And families that foster finding things out are more likely to produce kids who are good at finding things out. Now, families that have this mindset I call learning families. And learning families are going to be the incubators who are going to produce the next generation of tech-savvy and globally literate citizens that we've been talking about. So what is really a learning family? Well, it's a family that's on a mission. It's a family that values learning just for the sake of learning sometimes. It's a family that gets excited about the next new discovery. And it's a family that takes pride in identifying something that they don't know and then figuring it out together. Here are some other characteristics. Parents of learning families are like this father that you see here. They view their role as a coach and a facilitator of learning. Parents of learning families don't have to be right. They only have to be spark plugs who inspire the creativity and curiosity of their children. And parents in learning families ask a lot of questions, particularly how questions. So now that we know a little bit about what learning families are, what are some ways that we can foster them in our parents? Well, first of all, we can start early. Secondly, we can reframe the role of parent as coach and facilitator. And the third thing is to inspire travel among families. So let's talk a little bit about starting early first. And I can't emphasize this one enough. Neuroscience is teaching us some really interesting things about early learning now. For example, children by the age of 3 know about half of all that they're ever going to learn as an adult. Children at the age of 3 have brains that are about twice as active as the brain of an adult. And children by the age of 3 have already formed connections in their brain that are likely to last with them for the rest of their life. If you have any doubts about early learning, have you ever looked at a child's smile in the first few months of life? They do that because they've already learned the value and the power of imitation. Or how about crying? Every child learns very early on that a good loud cry is likely to score them a meal or a clean diaper. And how about walking? Okay, one of the most difficult engineering problems is to design a two-legged walking machine, and yet children learn how to walk by the age of 1, all on their own, pretty much, a full year before they're even talking. It's amazing. Just think about all the learning that takes place before the first few steps in life. So, you know, many programs that try to get kids into science and engineering like to start in high school, and the reasoning there is that students in high school are finally able to take part in science and engineering. They know what they need to know. And yet, research in education is now showing that experiences that kids have before the age of 13 are likely to leave imprints that will pretty much determine their career choices later on. So, you see, the brain obeys the law of use it or lose it. By the age of about 4, our brains have the most number of neural synaptic connections that they'll probably ever have. And after this age, they start to selectively prune the ones that aren't actively used. So if we want to get more kids into science and engineering, we should probably start early in life and leave them strong impressions rather than wait until high school. Now, the second thing that parents can do is to get involved in their kids' lives a little bit more deeply. And in particular, parents can become advocates for their kids and can really support their learning. They can do things like ask questions, and rather than a kid asking a question of why and the parent answering it, it's much more valuable if the parent follows with another question. That's interesting. I wonder how we could figure that out together. So another thing parents can do is to dream up simple little exercises like you see here in the kitchen, mixing some salt and warm water together. And when the child asks what's happening, don't answer the question, but instead ask another question. And so it goes. And of course, travel is one of the most wonderfully effective ways to get kids to think and to learn. You know, if you think back to the people that you knew that traveled as kids, and particularly those people that traveled in foreign countries, I think you'd agree that they are some of the most interesting and broad-minded people that you probably know. It's amazing. So the main thing to remember about travel and kids is that they don't have to remember all the details of where they went. That's not so important. What's important is that they had the opportunity to discover and to observe and to discuss with their parents. And that will, throughout their life, broaden their horizons and make them more able to learn later on. So far we've been talking about parents. What about organizations? Well, community-based organizations such as schools and museums and libraries and youth groups are particularly able to help parents form learning families. And why is this? Well, it's because they have this amazing ability to be flexible, and they know their communities, and they're not constrained by curricula or high-stakes testing. So the Science Center is an organization in Ithaca, New York that I'm associated with, and we have the vision of a world in which every young person is empowered to use science in shaping a better future. And we do that through an educational pipeline model that you see here with 3 linked initiatives that each of which is coupled to a major stage in youth development. The early childhood years, the elementary years, and the middle school years leading into high school. Now, the early childhood initiative, which we call Science from the Start, looks something like this. We work with young children, with parents, with preschool teachers, and with university researchers to work with kids and to try to encourage their natural scientific behaviors through exhibits like this that have to do with critical thinking, that have to do with cause and effect, and that encourage creative play. Our elementary school initiative has a flagship program called Power the Future, in which we reach about 400 second grade students every year. They learn about global climate change, most of them for the first time, and also get to build a windmill, which they can then test and learn about renewable energy. And then come the middle school years, which forms the 3rd initiative. And during the middle school years, this thing called adolescence happens. I don't know about you, I'd rather not remember too much about adolescence, but there it is. And kids at this age would much rather be with their peers than with their parents, as we know. And so we give them opportunities to do scientific research as citizen scientists with their peers on subjects like birds and other subjects that they're most interested in. And so, in conclusion, I'd like to invite you to take a journey into the future with me. Imagine a world in which every young child could grow up in a learning family, where learning is an everyday adventure, and where the joy of learning takes precedence over memorization or being right. Then we'd be on the right track. We'd be developing a generation of tech-savvy, creative individuals. And this new generation, empowered with a new worldview, would be able to have the technical and social tools needed to tackle and solve some of the world's great problems that so far have eluded the rest of us. That's the kind of world I want to live in. How about you?